Okay, good morning, everyone. I think we'll go ahead and get started because I know we have a lot to cover today. My name is Dina, and I'm co-moderating with my friend here, Zahwa. Before I turn it over to Zahwa to introduce herself, today we're going to be doing a slightly different structure to the campus conversation, and we're joined by President Ahmed Dalal and Provost Ihab Abdurrahman on our panel, as well as the members of the senior leadership with us in the audience, and we'll be addressing questions to them as well. But let me first pass it over to Zahwa to introduce herself, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about the format.
Of course, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Zahwa Kurtam, and I'm a senior mechanical engineering student here at AUC. So today I will be representing the student body mainly, and we actually opened up a forum where students were able to submit their questions and anything on their mind to our senior leaders. So hopefully I'll be able to address it to them today. Thank you for coming.
So in terms of the approach, because we want to try to address a number of topics, we're going to do this. The first section is going to be around everything on everyone's mind, and I bet there's one topic on everyone's mind, but there are a couple of other topics on everyone's mind. We'll start with those, and my colleagues here are going to try to keep us into about a 15-minute slot for that section. Then we're going to move a little bit to talking about strategic priorities and other exciting things that we're working on for the future. And then last but most definitely not least, University Architect Dr. Khalid Tarabeya will give us some updates on Campus 2026. So that's the plan. And we'll go ahead and start with some of the more pressing or urgent topics on everyone's mind. Zahwa?
Right, so the first question addresses the elephant in the room. As you are all familiar, there was a devaluation or flotation that occurred yesterday, and this question addresses that. What I'd like to ask to President Dalal is, will the university take any actions? Many students have raised concerns about their ability to pay tuition for the rest of the semester or in the upcoming years, and they'd like to get your insights on that topic.
Thank you, Zahra. Thank you, Dina. Yes, of course, we will take action. I mean, but first of all, this most recent devaluation just happened yesterday. And although we've been in the process of planning and modeling and simulating, it's different when you actually are hit by the actual event, by the actual occurrence of devaluation. So we are in the process currently. We had meetings this morning, we had meetings yesterday, and we will continue, and we will have interventions. The interventions will be guided by the exact same principles that we had previously. The mechanisms that we will deploy will have to calibrate. We calibrate. We try to get, we try to learn from previous experiences and fix where we can or enhance when we can our intervention. But the principles are the same. The principles are the first target, the first community that we're concerned about is our students and their ability to pay the tuition and the interventions that we need to make on that front. The second community, the second segment of the community is our staff, especially the staff who are paid in EGP. Now, as far as the students are concerned, there are the students who are on deferred payment because the vast majority of our students have actually paid their tuition for this semester and they paid it at the previous rate. There was quite a bit of talk about devaluation. If you remember, we opened the door for early registration or early payment, as a matter of fact, before registration to enable students to pay at the current rates, and we took on the risk resulting from that. So there is a small segment of the student body that are on deferred payment, and as exactly what the specifics of the mechanism will be, again, we're working on that, but we will create a fund that will help that will support these students. Again, our commitment that those students leaves the university because of financial concerns continues to be our ongoing premise, and we will deliver on that. Then there is, of course, the planning for next year. We're still working on the scenarios for that, and there are two constituencies. There are the continuing students and there are the new students. For the continuing students, we will have, as we did in previous years, we will have a fund, an emergency fund that will address needs of students whose families have not adjusted to the current financial situation and are not able to deliver at the current currency rate. And then, of course, there are the new students, and this is another set of concerns for us. Last year we we didn't meet the target, the enrollment target that we're hoping to achieve. And we have to address that, and we're working on simulations and scenarios. There will definitely be interventions on both fronts. Exactly what form this will be, this will take, is still something that we're working on. And again, mind you, we don't know where things will settle. And, at least we'll have to wait a few days to see, where this storm, how this storm will settle. And, what is it is it going to be 50 or 45 or 40 or what have you? So again, depending on what happens, the actual mechanism of intervention will differ. Then, of course, there are our staff. Again, if you remember, we preemptively, just last week, was it last week? Just last week and in this month's payment, we preemptively introduced a bonus payment for our employees, and of course, for the lower income, the bonus was higher, equivalent to two months' salaries. It decreased a little bit with the increase in rank and salary and income level, and there was, of course, a ceiling on the amount, but a significant ceiling. The logic of the intervention is, regardless of whether or not there is devaluation, we've been talking about devaluation all year long, from the beginning of the year. Regardless of whether or not we have devaluation, inflation was skyrocketing, people were affected, and we had to intervene, so we preemptively intervene. And as we said in the message that we communicated to the community at the time, this is a one-time intervention. We cannot change the budget. We have a budget cycle. The budget cycle is, the budget is approved at the end of May by the board, and the budget cycle kicks in at the end of June, beginning of July, till the end of the following June. We have systematically, in the last 2 years, we've been introducing significant, and I underscore significant, salary structural changes, and we will continue to do that. We have every intention to do that in a meaningful way. I know we didn't catch up with devaluation, but it's an attempt. It's a gradual, cumulative attempt over the last 2 years and the last two budget cycles and the following budget cycles, and we definitely will do that. So we already intervened on a one-time basis to support our staff, and certainly we have every intention to continue with the structural changes to our salary structure, to keep up with this very serious change in the currency. Then again, the exact modality is still something that we're working on. We have to balance our budget. We have to do the full calculations, but we have every intention to continue with the exact same principles as we did before. Not the exact same tools, but the same principles.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your insights, President Dalal. No. Fortunately, we have a couple more questions for you as well. But yeah, we would also like to thank the university for its efforts during these pressing times. However, my next question actually goes out to Provost Abdulrahman. So we understand AUC is about to introduce an honor code. Can you tell us about that?
Thank you, Zahwa. Thank you, Dina. Yes, absolutely. And allow me to call on later on my colleague, Dr. Richard Awad, to add to what I'm going to say. So this is really a good example of how the community came together to discuss something that we really needed at the university. So the Dean of Students, the chair of the Student Affairs Committee on the Senate, the SU, the students, faculty, and staff have been discussing for almost a year and a half an honor code. It went through an approval process, and it's mainly a compilation of all the policies that we have at the university, the anti-discrimination policy, the anti-sexual harassment policy, and other policies in the university. It describes the community that we want to be. So that's the honor code. Soon enough, every member of our community will receive an email with more details about the honor code. So staff will receive an email from my colleague, Sarah Rifat. Faculty will receive an email from me, and students will receive an email from Dean of Students, Jürgen Marcel. So I truly believe that that honor code is one step forward into the right direction to make EUC the community that we want to be. Dr. Rachel, would you like to add anything?
Thank you. So as Dr. Ihab said, this is not a new policy. This is taking existing policies and bringing them together in order to make a statement about very intentionally that each and every one of us commit to being part of a particular kind of community. So we're not asking anyone to commit to something new. All of us in our roles here as faculty, staff, or students already follow the principles of anti-harassment and non-discrimination, the Code of Student Conduct, and perhaps most importantly, the Code of Academic Integrity. So this brings them all together and is an opportunity for each of us to say, I want to be a member of a particular kind of community and I'm going to contribute to that. So as Dr. Ihab said, probably the second week of Ramadan, letters will be going out to everyone with links and information to learn more about it. We're talking about doing an information session. If there's interest in that the HR and the Provost Office would co-host. And there, within the email, there's lots of links to the page with the honor code, FAQs, etc. So we welcome questions. We don't think it's a radical new change. It's really just an opportunity for all of us to commit to coming together as a community.
Perfect. So moving on.
Should we, because I just got a signal on time. Should we see if there's anyone who has, so we have a couple more questions that were submitted from online, but I just want to, on this topic, is there anyone in the room that would like to add a question, either related to the flotation or related to the honor code? Go ahead.
Hi, I'm just a bit confused by the statement that the university is planning to deal with the current evaluation with the same principles as it dealt with them before. The principles which have laid the groundwork for a very degrading experience for AUC students, frankly speaking, because it's just become clear as that evaluations have cascaded over and over and over the past couple of years that AUC students have to continue and finish their degrees at the behest of the mighty dollar, and they have absolutely no control over their academic careers. I am personally affected by this, of course, and I am aware of so many different cases where students have had to pause or delay their graduation plans simply because they cannot bear the financial load of having to keep up with the dollar, the mysterious dollar, of course. So when or what is the roadmap for decoupling the AUC education experience from the mighty dollar? Because here, we're Egyptians, we're not Americans. We don't earn in dollars, we earn in Egyptian pounds, and we're tied to the Egyptian pound. So when is the AUC going to start to consider the Egyptian student as the main stakeholder who is most affected by this ride, honestly, this roller coaster of a ride through the currencies, and going to decouple the academic experience from the economic situation? Thank you.
There is no roadmap for decoupling the tuition from dollars for the time being. I mean, we're looking at multiple scenarios. The reality of AUC is many of our expenses are pegged against the dollar. Salaries, some of the salaries, faculty salaries, some of the actual expenses, insurance costs, and so on and so forth. There is a very significant amount of expenses which is pegged in dollar, which is why, and by the way, when we opened last semester the door for people to pay in advance at the existing rate, I mean, the intention was to minimize the risk that the students are taking. But we collected funds that we're going to spend until the end of the year, and now these funds lost, you do the math, from 30 to 50. We have less money now to pay for the costs of the university, even costs that are, as you know very well, costs that are in EGP, they are pegged against the dollar. So contractors come to you and they say, you pay us the equivalent of so many dollars in EGP. In some cases, they insist that we pay them a portion or the full amount even in dollars. That is a problem that AUC didn't create. That is a national problem. And we're trying to weather it, we're trying to navigate it as responsibly and conscientiously as we can. I said, and I repeat, we will not be able to completely erase the impact of this situation, but we're doing everything that we can. We're using the best of judgment, and we're assessing and reassessing and calibrating and recalibrating to figure out how to intervene to support our community. And again, by our community, I mean our students and our staff who are paid in EGP. We're not the top 15% of the earners in the university, many of whom earn a portion of their salaries in dollars, of course, do not need the support. Again, this is a structural issue. There is no, it's not that we're not looking at the possibility. In the past, the university changed different denominations and so on and so forth. And it's not because people were flimsy and like to change their mind. It's because they were dealing with a very serious structural challenge that the university has. If you have commitments, liabilities in dollars, you have to have dollar income. Otherwise, the university will go bankrupt, and no one will benefit from that. So we are Egyptian. It's not a matter of nationality. Yes, and we are Egyptian, but it's not a matter of a slogan. It's a reality of the cost structure of the university and being able to balance the budget at the end of the day.
Thank you. I'm going to have to take we took your question. Let's go back, and if we have time, we'll come. Yes, sure. And then Zaho has another question.
Yeah, thank you very much. Really, an excellent comment. And this is our day-to-day discussion about what are we going to do to make sure that our students we are able to help our students, and we are able to help our staff during this hard time. This hard time is for everyone, not only within AUC, but also outside the walls of AUC. But on the issue of students have been delaying their studies and leaving the university, I have been hearing that many, many times, and every time I hear that, I ask the people to communicate those names to me. The numbers that we have says otherwise. The attrition that happened in our student body is almost the same as every other year. There is no increase or decrease in the number of students who leave the university for one reason or another. And please, I beg you, if you know of someone who's in that situation, ask them to come and meet me, because we have been committing ourselves to make sure that every student who is unable, with a proof, to pay the tuition, that we will support them. And we have been doing that for the last year or more. So, so that statement that has been, circulating, we look at the data. We have the data, we have the information, and the data says otherwise.
Thank you so much for both your insights. I do have one more question from a student that was actually submitted online, and I'd like to direct it to Provost Abdulrahman. Is it possible to offer engineering students a gap semester so that they can have a real full internship experience for 6 months with the recommendation of our professors?
That's one of my favorite topics, actually. We call that collaborative education, co-op program. And a few years ago, I had a meeting with the Dean of Business and the Dean of SSE, not Dr. Lutfi Ghaffar, the Dean before Dr. Lutfi Ghaffar. I asked them to look at the co-op programs in other universities and try to introduce the same program at AUC, where the students are asked to leave the university for at least 1 semester, totally leave the university and go work, real work, under the supervision of one of our faculty and the supervisor at work. The School of Business have successfully implemented that, and they introduced that system, and it's really well received by the employers. Not only that, students before they graduate now in the School of Business, they receive offers from those employers to join them after they graduate. So the co-op program has been already implemented in the School of Business, and asking my colleagues in the School of Engineering to do the same. This is not just a summer internship program. The summer internship program that has been in SSE for so many years, and this is something else. This is something more rigorous, deeper, that's actually should be planned carefully, and it consumes the time of the faculty who's supervising that, but actually the benefits for the students is really huge. Some parents came and met us from the School of Business saying, what's in it for my son or my daughter? They will be delayed for graduation for one semester. But actually, after they have seen the impact of that one semester on their sons and daughters, they came back and they said that this was really a good program. So I think this is the third or the fourth cohort in the School of Business that have been going through the co-op program, and the feedback is really amazing from students, parents, and employers. So I am kindly inviting my colleagues in the engineering to look into that carefully and implement it.
Thank you. So I think we're going to try to shift gears a little bit to our next kind of main topic. And so if you remember from previous campus conversations, we're going to talk about the strategic priorities roadmap. But before we do, the purpose of this is, we're constantly trying to balance challenges that we're dealing with today without losing sight of the future. So if I can get the strategic roadmap. So if you remember, these are some of the key priorities we talked about. So we'd like to take this opportunity today that we have our senior leaders and just get a quick update on some of the priorities and where we are on those.
So here we actually got questions for both Provost Abdulrahman and President Dalal, but let's just start off with the first question, and I'd like to direct it to Provost Abdulrahman. Are there discussions on opening up new majors or schools in the future?
Yes, programs of the future is one of the big topics that we discuss in almost every meeting with in the Provost Council, in the Senior Leadership Group, or in the Academic Leadership Forum, where all chairs are there. And there are few ideas about specific measures that we would like to introduce, and the President has talked about that many times before. Urban studies, for example, smart cities, another example as new programs. So yes, there is discussion about a new measure that makes sense, that are unique, that actually look at the future of jobs and try to address those jobs. And in my own opinion, those have to be multidisciplinary. They cannot be just the normal. I'm a physicist, so I'm going to say physics, not to talk about other measures. So not the normal program that we have been seeing in the past, physics, mechanical engineering, history. It has to be multidisciplinary programs where the students gain different skills and be ready for the future.
Thank you so much for your insights. Building on that, I'd like to ask a question to President Dalal. In previous campus conversations, you discussed programs of the future. Can you give us some more updates on how those are moving ahead?
So to build on what the Provost said, we have to think and rethink our programs. We have to ensure that we're providing high quality education. We have historically been able to deliver on that promise, and we need to continue to do that. We can't just rely on our past. It's really, we need to look into the future. Higher education is changing rapidly. The demands of the job market are changing rapidly. The needs of our societies are changing rapidly, and we need to keep up with all of that. There are also many tools. There is artificial intelligence and data science that drives education, and we need to build capacity in that area and apply it. So the programs of the future effort is a comprehensive effort that each department, it will manifest itself, of course, in a small number of new programs, but perhaps repositioning, rethinking the curriculum, rethinking tools of delivery, and so on and so forth. There are three big clusters that, by the way, many universities around the world are actually developing capacity in, and certainly that are relevant to us here in Egypt and the region. The first one is environmental studies and climate studies and sustainability. And of course, we have a strong area. I mean, we're quite strong at the university, both in terms of the educational programs we deliver, as well as in the research that's being done. This is an area that we will continue to support and grow. And of course, the growth is something that our community will have to, our faculty and graduate students will think about and deliver on. The other major area cluster that we are and will be thinking of is we have very strong program in architecture, which we need to reinforce and support. We have a strong design program, but the area which we need to develop, we need to articulate and develop in connection to this is urban studies and smart cities. And in a nutshell, that is addressing urban development challenges with a data-driven approach, optimizing systems within cities so that they are efficient, they're sustainable, and so on and so forth. So we have one of our strategic priorities when we develop the programs and also when we mobilize the funding is to build a new school of design, architecture, and urban studies / smart cities, which would be the first of its kind in the region, especially the program in smart cities. And it will be, of course, a way through which our community will contribute to solving problems that are urgent, both within Egypt, in the region, and in fact, globally. There are also niche programs. Again, this is not an exhaustive list, and departments will have to think about their programs and the way they want to position themselves. We're urging them to go through this exercise, and most of our programs are already doing this. There are niche programs that are unique to our location that we have a responsibility to nurture and develop. We have a university task force looking at the possibility of building a new PhD program in Middle Eastern Studies. Again, by virtue of our location, we want to write a voice from the region and the global discussions that are taking place in this area. We want to be part of the conversation about our region, and we want to strengthen this. We have an undergraduate program, we have a master's degree, but this is a qualitatively different approach. Areas like Egyptology and Coptic studies, again, are very relevant to us, not just for a small group of students who major in these fields, but for the larger community, because this is part and parcel of our culture. This is part of what we need to teach our students and inculcate for our familiarity and knowledge of the multiple layers of civilization and culture that exist here in Egypt. So these are some of the niche areas that we will also try to mobilize, restructure because they are existing programs, or reposition so that they're much more effective. So these are some of the big clusters and small niche areas, but there, of course, the list is endless.
Thank you, Dr. Dalal. So if I'll turn to the audience now, if there's any questions sort of on the topic of either academic programs, student-centered culture. Do we have a question from the audience? This is from our online audience, so let's do that, and then I'll come to the back.
Okay, we have one comment probably. How about implementing an undergraduate fashion program that would undoubtedly garner immense popularity in the region? That's an idea.
Undergraduate, how about implementing
Fashion.
an undergraduate fashion program is a suggestion.
I'm not good with fashion too, but we received an early application for fashion design in the past, and we need to be also very selective as a small university that we admit only 1,000, 1,200 students every year. On what kind of programs do we add to us? We are not a big university in order to have every single program out there. We can't. We simply cannot be adding all the programs that everyone can dream of. So we have to be very selective. That first attempt was not that successful, I would say. We're open for applications, and we'll see what turns out from the process of reviewing applications for majors. But let me also say something very important as a university. In the last, I would say, almost 10, 15 years, the number of undergraduate students have been almost the same. They are fluctuate around 5,500 students. Currently, we have around 30 undergraduate major, almost 30. And if you do the math, then divide 5,500, divide by 30, that will give you the average enrollment per major, just an average. Assume that we increased that number of programs to 60, double the number of programs today, keeping the same number of students the same in order to be able to support them, at least financially. That means that the number of students per major will be much less, half of the number that you calculated earlier. That's not sustainable. That's why we have to look at what kind of major we will add to EUC very careful, and we have to be very selective that we offer majors that really mean something to the university at large.
Thank you. Let me take your question in the back then.
I'd like to ask about if you have any plans to tackle the problem of the very high declaration GPAs, especially in the School of Business. Yani the finance major now ranges between 3.9 and 3.95 as a declaration GPA, which prevents many people, yani I'm one of them, from entering the major I want to study. Yani I have a declaration GPA of 3.87 and I was not declared in the major. Yani there was a difference of 0.015. Yani these things prevent me from studying the thing I want. It's not only in the School of Business, it's also in other schools. Especially in the School of Business, they tried adding something like the personal statement to like decrease the weight on GPAs, but this didn't help in anything. They're still following the same. They're still following the GPA only, declaration GPA, supply and demand. This is not. How is this sustainable? How can people study the major they want? This is my question.
Just say a couple of words, and then let the provost address this at length. I agree with you. Admissions should be holistic admission. It shouldn't be just the GPA. It should be a range of things, and we need to learn how to do that. It's not something that we'll be able to. We've taken the decision at the university level to actually look holistically at an application. For students applying to the university, we now have a range of things that we consider, not just the GPA, and it's demonstrated that this is the way to go. Of course, grades count, but there are other things that count as well. But we also need to learn how to do this and implement it, and I'll let the provost address that.
Dr. Darwish, would you like to answer? That's a problem in the university, not only in the School of Business, as you mentioned, in other majors, also in engineering. And we have to be very careful on how to set the criteria for declaration of majors. But I want you also to understand, no matter what are the criteria, there will be always a demand on a specific majors in the university. That demand will change from year to another, by the way. And you will always find specific majors turn students down because they cannot have them. Or if they accept all the students who apply it, you will find that most of the students are in a couple of majors or 3 majors in the university, and that's it. And that's not a good university strategy that way. So that means also our students should be very open-minded when it comes to selection of majors. So if you try to declare, for example, business administration, because that's highly demanded major, and you did not get the grade or the criteria, not forget the GPA, because I agree with you, GPA only as a criteria is not a good thing. Then you have to have an alternative for that. I'm sure that you will have other interests in other area. As I said a minute ago, I'm a physicist. What am I doing now? I'm a provost of a university. Physics taught me only how to solve problems. So I use that knowledge from physics in my current job. So when you graduate, really, you will explore many career paths that now I think the statistics say now, studies say now, that people will change their careers 12 times in their lifetime. So that means it's not the major that you study, it's the holistic learning that you get at the university. So yes, I understand the disappointment when you try to declare a major and you do not declare that major for different reasons. But life is more of good things more than just declaring a major. Trust me on that one.
Thank you. So I think we'll move now to the final segment. Okay, I'll do one more quick question so we can move to Campus 2026.
So my question is like, instead of first, sorry for my ignorance about the topic of changing the curriculum and so, but instead of like introducing new disciplines, I think incorporating the new technologies that's being introduced every day into the current curriculum is like a more efficient way of having a multidisciplinary like majors. And also I think that EUC should be a pioneer of like incorporating a lot of incorporating new technologies in the major. Like for example, I'm a mechanical engineering major, and there is a huge advancement in data-driven modeling and machine learning incorporated in like the machine design optimization and all of that. However, we are not really introduced to these topics until like later on, or even in the graduate level. So I think like having those topics incorporated in like undergraduate level, at least like a little bit of introduction, like not a sophisticated overview of the topic, like just introduction to know that these topics are really there, would be a nice idea to have. And thank you.
You're absolutely right. Yes, of course. And in the majority of cases, this is what's going to happen. When we talk about programs of the future, we're talking about upgrading existing programs, making sure we're keeping up with developments and technologies and new modalities of thinking and new areas within the fields. So we're not going to get rid of mechanical engineering, obviously, but there's so much happening in the field of mechanical engineering that makes it very different. I used to be a mechanical engineer way back, and it doesn't look like anything you know today. So in some cases, we have to introduce. We will, but that will be a limited case. And in these cases where we introduce new majors, it will inevitably involve interdisciplinarity. But by the way, interdisciplinarity doesn't just, I mean, even in mechanical engineering, what you just mentioned is using tools that come from outside of the discipline of mechanical engineering to enrich it and to enable you to do different things in mechanical engineering. So there are instances where we need to introduce new majors, but in the vast majority of cases, it's really about making sure that our disciplines, our fields are up to date.
Thank you. So let me now switch to Campus 2026 so we make sure we have enough time to cover that. And University Architect Dr. Khaled Torbeh is going to give us a brief introduction on where we are. But before we do that, we had actually a batch of questions around the campus. So Zahwa will answer that came online. We'll ask you that question and then we'll turn it over to you.
I think I can safely say this is one of the topics the students are most excited about. So I actually wanted to ask a couple of questions regarding that. So this we received from two different students, and henceforth I'll start with it. Are there plans for expanding parking on campus? This is a hassle we have every day. And there was also a question if there will be new smart technologies introduced, and another asking if any new sports facilities like paddle are being considered. Perhaps you can comment on possibilities of new parking technology and sports facilities.
Okay, hello everyone. Before I start, I just want to make sure that everyone get their information from the Campus 2026 webpage, because I noticed among even my students sometimes that they don't have knowledge about that webpage, which has the up-to-date information. So you can get to it and get up-to-date information, I believe, around the project. So since last time when we spoke in November, we spoke about the timeline and where we are in the process. So far, we have been working ever since on the conceptual side of the architecture of the buildings, which I will show some snapshots of this, as well as redefining and detailing the overall master plan. Now we get to the questions with respect to parking. Okay, everyone should understand that there are no, the limits that govern any institution with parking spots is what actually is acceptable by the guidelines, okay, of that country or that whatever where we are. So of course we have a huge demand on parking. We will increase 20% above what we have right now. 20 to 25%, we're doing our best to do that. Our objective, of course, to be in line with the Egyptian guidelines for acceptance of parking spots. But we understand that our community, they each, have their own kind of parking requirements because we all drive all our personal vehicles every day. So we believe that with this 20% at least increase for the key projects, only the 3 projects that we're adding, along with what we have in reserve for the future, for the full master plan, that we would be well within the guidelines, understanding that with the mass transit options that are being introduced at this point, along with maybe more understanding and more growth of our carpooling, along with our bus fleet utilization, that this should be able to close the gap. But of course, our population, and our population is not small, but it's impossible that you provide a single parking spot for every single member of our population. So that's one reply. The other one on the paddle.
There is, yes, smart technologies and the paddle sports facilities.
So we're working with, of course, our technology specialists here on campus with Dr. Iman Mujahid on developing the strategy for what will be technology like in 2026 or 2027 when we start to use. Of course, it might seem that it's a very kind of short range years, but that requires really detailed planning because technology changes almost rapidly. We definitely going to have to employ technologies that allows us to have much better utilization, for example, on an operation, for example, to have our buildings much more energy efficient. We will have to use much better technologies on IoT and integration with our systems so that we can, for example, track the usage of our buildings, so we direct energy according to how full our capacities of our buildings are. We are exploring the technologies as we proceed, but also there is a factor of cost as well that is a primary issue in technology, but definitely our buildings, that's logical that they will have a dimension of technology that's step up from what we have right now today. Paddle. Okay, so for the student housing buildings, we do have spaces for exercise, but unfortunately can't have paddle kind of courts within the actual buildings. We do have a very large sport facility, maybe with the student body, if they can explore with the directors of the sports and the operations, and the dean, of course. Yes. So maybe there's good news here.
Actually, there is. Paddle tennis is in the works. We're working on getting those courts established in the next year, or maybe sooner.
Faculty and staff are allowed to use them? Because I play paddle, so I would love to compete against my students on this. Okay, so that's kind of where we are, but definitely I hope that we have few minutes to go through. Okay, so someone is flipping here. Okay, and then so I hope the crowd here has been with us since November campus conversations. If you were not part of it, well, we have 3 key projects that we are working on developing. The first is the Technology Research and Innovation Lab, a building that combines the industry with our AUC innovation. It's a key building for the future of AUC and for creating a generation of entrepreneurs and scaling up their research to actually be made in AUC and to benefit Egypt and the world with that. The next, of course, these are sample of the renderings of the building. Building has 2 major components of forward thinking and future labs along with components for the startups, and it will include units and representations of the venture hub and technology transfer along with the innovative open labs as well. Next. That's the Extended Education Hub, which will sit at the further tip of the campus, and it's situated there to accept professionals. And in fact, there is a dedicated new entrance as well for this building that will be like on the street right between us and our neighbors, and it will accept students that are actually professionals, evening professionals that are already taking courses in School of Continuing Education, GAP, Executive Education, Business, and Engineering. The Extended Education Hub will combine, I will bring all the programs that we offer currently for professionals in one place, and it will expand even further, so we're able to provide more classes that suit the workforce and upskill not just the professionals, but also others who are looking into expanding their learning and not associated with AUC. And for the most part, they are programs that are not for credit. Next. Finally, the next generation student and learning spaces, our future new housing of approximately 300 beds, and that's where you wanted the paddle to be located, but we already have it. Okay, so we have other features in our future student housing that it's becoming to be more interactive, more of an experience rather than just a place where you park at the end of the day, and it's a part that shapes up your future for the students, allow them to be immersed in the AUC experience by having spaces there that would allow them learning from in place, allow them, for example, opportunities to train, opportunities to learn how to cook, make new friends, and it's all based on our discussions and conversations, of course, with the Dean of Students, along with the students on many, many focus groups. These are some renderings for it that shows the approach of the building, how integrated in architecture it is with the campus, along with some snapshots on the renderings of what the common spaces are, along with the shaded areas. And that has been a continuous demands of providing more shading, especially in summer, for the students to be able to use and interact with the building. Next. Is that it? Okay.
So are there any questions on Campus 2026?
It's well understood and clear.
It's,
Yes.
I think it's all good.
Thank you for the presentation. And my question is again around sustainability. So you mentioned energy efficiency and the likes, which is fine, but the design itself and the material, and so is it really futuristic from a sustainability perspective, or is it just another extension of what we have?
Yep. So first of, if we're talking about sustainability, it has like a number of dimensions to it. We've been always looking at the environmental dimension, Doctor, on this, which our buildings, the campus buildings that we have right now, extremely sustainable in terms of its use, for example, of stone on its cover and the thickness and the ability to retain cooling within them. We're continuing in them, if not better. Okay, so we are continuing same along the lines of the same structure and same materials that we've actually used, which are extremely compatible as a design guideline with our climate and environment. Now, what is kind of new that we are providing a more sustainable buildings is, of course, in the buildings will be certified as green buildings. That's our basis of design, to be certified on LEED. LEED is Leadership for Energy and Environmental Design. It's an American green building certification that would really validate the points that you said with respect to the environmental sustainability in terms of operation, admission of daylight, penetration of natural daylighting, and working in a way that is even above, much better, different than where we are right now, where we rely more on passive design strategies. Now, the other dimensions that we are working on that has not been well caught in the first, what we call the existing campus, is the inclusion and social sustainability aspects of ability to create an accessible building that not just for those who will, with special needs, but also those who are visually have visual challenges. So we're looking into the deployment of tactile signs, for example, to allow them unassisted to be able to communicate and commute between housing and between the library, for example. We're studying that. We're studying our landscape to be friendly for this and be able to create a sense of a sustainability for our community that's not just focused, you know, I hope it's not just focused on the environmental dimension, but more on the inclusion as well.
Thank you.
I'm limited, of course, by time, but I can go through it. You know, I can go through this
Sorry,
till
Dr.
midnight.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tarabaya. So thank you, everyone. I know we're kind of reaching the end. There's a few moments left that we can maybe chat informally. So if you would do us a huge favor, scan the QR code, let us know what you thought of this format. Give us some feedback that can help us in next sessions. Our next time we meet, inshallah, will be in April in the Tahrir campus, our next campus conversation. And actually, I'd like to close with a comment that someone, as Zahwa mentioned, we opened an online forum to ask for questions. So a colleague of ours left this comment. She said, I'm going to retire by the end of this year after 36 years of serving AUC. Almost all of my life was spent in the university. My 3 children graduated from AUC. I'd like to thank AUC for every moment I spent on it. Her name is Ines Omar. So it was just a nice reminder of the kind of the people that we're fortunate enough to work with. So thank you again. Thank you to President Dallal, Provost Abdurrahman, and thank you to my colleague Zahwa. Thank you all very much.